Like it or not, Skull and Bones is on its way. So in the meantime, there is plenty to be talking about. These guys have just released their launch trailer, and I would love to play it. However, it is played with Billie Eilish, so unfortunately, if I did that, I'd be struck down probably by the Kraken itself. Yet in this trailer, we get a good idea of everything that's going to be coming. On the 17th of February, Skull and Bones is going to be releasing on all platforms, and it's had, well, one of the rockiest build-ups I think I've ever seen. In fact, IGN released a video a few days ago talking about this turbulent process of everything from the very start of its announcement back in early 2017 to its delays. Everything from 2019 to 2020 to the inevitable delay to 2022 and finally our release date in 2024. I think this is the first time we can be confident saying that we're actually going to be getting Ubisoft's Pirate Simulator, but there's a little bit more to it. In fact, in a couple days from when I'm making this video, there's going to be an open beta, which is going to be the first time that most, or should I say the majority of people, are going to get their hands on it. And I think that's going to be the most interesting display to what Ubisoft have to offer. It's safe to say there is a bit of a split down the middle. Okay, we can actually get a pretty good idea at where this split is by their launch trailer. 32 minutes ago it came out, and already we have 389 likes and 132 dislikes. Most of the comments are, well, just like the like to dislike ratio. For example, we've got many people saying they're excited, shut up and take my money, all the best memes. And then there's a lot of talking about Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, how it wasn't quite what they wanted it to be anyway, and the general disappointment that most people are displaying with the way that the development has gone, and Ubisoft in general not exactly giving them the best confidence in their new game. So what actually is it that caused all of this controversy? Well, it goes back to 2017, when we saw it at E3. People were very excited, and with the trailers that came out, or at least the cinematic ones, it did seem like this would be, since it was the same development team, a new Assassin's Creed Black Flag, but in a standalone pirate game. You see, Ubisoft Singapore, who are the developers behind Skull and Bones, actually were the people behind the ship battles in the first Assassin's Creed 3 outing. This was the first time we saw proper naval combat in an Assassin's Creed game, and that was the reasoning that people had the greatest of confidence with these. Despite this, Ubisoft came into a lot of issues, whether it was financial or just management-wise. There was some huge controversies around the work etiquette at Ubisoft, meant that numerous layoffs and changes in management later, the game would be delayed. 2020 would see another delay, 2022 once more, and even in 2023 it was pushed back. During this time, the whole course of the game's structure was called into question. At first it was going to be an open world pirate game, then it was changed for focus purely on the arcadey ship battles, and then they tried to add back in the open worldness a little bit later on. And what did we get from that? Well, weird looking arcadey mush, collecting resources with these mobile looking ass graphics and hunting animals in some sort of quick time event. Now don't get me wrong, Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag also had kind of a quick time event for harpooning whales, but it wasn't the main source of your gameplay mechanics. One of the other main issues is that lack of love putting into the open world section, because they are still committed to telling us this is an open world game, yet are not putting the effort into actually making it feel like one. Jumping onto islands is not a seamless event like in any Assassin's Creed, especially not Black Flag. And a game even like Sea of Thieves does this 10 times better. Everything from walking around islands to getting quests seems very, very linear. Then actually jumping into battles is more of a matchmaking arcadey setup. But every battle feels very forced and intentional as a mechanic by the developers, rather than this seamless pirate experience where you just come across a frigate and decide, I want their loot. And that's something I think most people wanted. Don't get me wrong, this game still looks goddamn beautiful. It is Ubisoft after all, and all their trailers, including their newest release trailer, do still make it look like a title you want to play. But then we actually got some closed beta stuff, and that's when my love for the game started to dwindle. Because I actually really do want Skull and Bones to be a success. I do want another pirate game because it is a genre that is definitely lacking. But one of the main features, boarding enemy ships, has been completely ripped out and diluted down to a cutscene. Upgrading your crew, all done through menus, and seeing it all in real time just looks like you're playing a free-to-play mobile shooter. Adding in paint jobs and cannons, these weird firework rockets and everything in between. Of course, historical accuracy was never their intention, but in some ways it is needed for a more grounded, realistic experience rather than a World of Warships pirate ripoff. Has it improved from the first sightings back in earlier E3s? Yes, I think so. But there is still very much a definite skepticism from the fanbase, not just from like to dislike ratios or comments, but from the people that have played it as well. Most of the reviews that came out of the closed beta were negative, saying that it just didn't live up to anything that was teased early on. I think Ubisoft have been trying to temper players' expectations by saying that it is more of an arcadey game and releasing more of this arcadey footage, yet from Backlash it seems like that hasn't worked. People just don't want to see a game like this, and unfortunately it is the title we're getting. So whether you enjoy this game is going to tilt on whether you can accept the fact that this is not going to be the Skull and Bones that was initially teased or the one that everybody still wants. It is going to be a completely different experience. Think of it more of an arcadey ship battler than the swashbuckling pirate open world that I think actually was the desired output. I mean, I'm not going to show too much, but just from clips, look at this title. The best I can say about it is it just looks nice, but everything mechanic-wise seems very shallow and surface level. Many people talk about it being as wide as an ocean but as deep as a puddle because there isn't really all that much other than going from quest to quest, meeting players and fighting them, or going up against AI forts. That seems like the core game loop. Ubisoft's approach is either accept that or don't play. So why was it never cancelled? Because this clearly isn't the title that they intended on, at least at Ubisoft Singapore. Well, there was many rumours about the Singaporean government having some part in funding Skull and Bones, meaning that it was almost unacceptable for them to quit and they couldn't not release this title. There's also the case of many speculate of the sunk cost fallacy. So much money has been put into Skull and Bones, and I'm not just talking about development, but all those cinematic trailers and the promotion. This has had more release dates and more teased trailers than goddamn James Bond No Time to Die. So if they can make any money out of it, it would be better than nothing. But that also worries me about the future of Skull and Bones when it finally does come out. Because sales figures wise, I'm skeptical. It does still have players that want to see it, and I for one will be picking it up and seeing what we can gain out of this experience, because whilst it wasn't what I wanted in the first place, maybe it still does have some value to it. Yet is it going to be enough to really pay off? That begs in the question, what do they do next? Because I think one of the biggest fears with an arcadey boat battling game with tons of different skins and weapons that can be unlocked, it is rife for microtransactions and selling extra content on top of what Ubisoft already haven't put in. And that is my main worry. I know I'm going into Skull and Bones being incredibly skeptical, but I've got a lot of content lined up and I'm going to try and be as fair and down the middle as possible, but also incredibly honest with how I actually feel. Because I really am looking forward to seeing it, to see if Ubisoft can change my mind. Everything I've seen so far just looks slightly short of what I actually wanted. But maybe they can open my eyes to something different.